I'm dealing with a quite large project at this point in time. It's a big area, and I have to divide my working force and sometimes several crew members. And at this particular repair, which was vertical and overhead production, in terms of the repairs, I had 4 to 5 individuals working on, and I I got a lead guy to basically take care of this particular repair, and I explained what the work was needed to be done. In the meantime, a couple of days later, so I noticed that we're doing my survey of the area. I noticed that we're not hitting the production required earlier. That was kind of a little bit of my fault, I would say, because I know how I think, what are my expectations, or how I would communicate to others. So sometimes I expect that from other individuals. In this case, when I put this um, lead guy over there, I expected him to have the same, I would say, same kind of principles, but without expecting that he may not know that. Um, because that's what I usually do. So if I had communicated that to him on an earlier basis, I would have that information that we're a little bit behind on the first day. So when I questioned him about it in terms of production, and this was probably like into the third day over there, that's when I got that information, because there was a bunch of other things ongoing, and that was my mishap. I do believe on that. That was the main issue. Their setup was not the correct one. Everyone was kind of doing the same thing instead of like having somebody doing the demo, somebody doing the prepping, and somebody doing the patching. So there was some stalling over there because everyone trying to do the same thing. It does not work, and it did not work at this particular repair, since also between all the tools and equipment, it gets a little bit limited in terms of usage. Let's face it, there's not five chipping hammers for everyone. There's a limited amount of tools, so that did not add up to me, and I was a little bit also at the same time a little bit surprised that they were not understanding that. But after a few minutes assessing the situation, I spoke with the guys and explained the situation, and obviously trying to put the guys that are a little bit better demo the guys who are better at patching, doing what they're supposed to do at the patching or at the demo, not vice versa. So to try to get the best out of them in terms of production. And then after addressing the situation, that seemed to solve the issue, and we're able to get that ship sailing.
Yeah, we were on a job a couple of years ago, a caulking job, and we knew from our pull tests that if we did not grind the substrate, that the sealant would fail. And so we knew that, and so the guys had grinders, but this particular building had a lot of inside corners, hard to get at. So you couldn't get a mini grinder in there to grind the corners, and so that was a problem that was identified, almost immediately, and we got a solution almost immediately. We got the tools out there, the proper tools out there, and so we could proceed. Well, the first thing is to let them know there's a problem, and it was kind of obvious to me and to the project manager, what the solution was. The solution was to get a tool that would fit into these areas. So the first thing is to let them know the problem, which we did right away. And then the second thing is to discuss which tools would work the best. And we didn't know for sure which tool would work the best, so we got several of each. We got some fine tools, and then we got some die grinders as well, and we determined which one would work the best. But the point is, we knew right away that there was a problem when our grinders couldn't reach everything. And so they were kept in the loop because I didn't want to go out and buy a bunch of tools without them knowing why. But everybody knew from the get-go that everything has to be ground. So as soon as whoever it was realized we can't grind everything, then I was told. So it was communication. Before these guys ever got up on the wall to start cutting out and grinding, they needed to know, and they did know, that it had to be clean.
Recently, I'm working on a hospital, and we were supposed to start at 6 in the morning and work till a certain time chipping, and within a half hour we're shut down. I can't tell the person who runs this hospital where there's sick patients and other things going on in here, like, hey, we got work to do. When he asks me to stop, I say, no problem, let's get together and figure out a new time. Um, and it's situations like that that set Western apart. I typically, after something like this will happen, well, I will immediately call my project manager as soon as I'm done talking with the customer, and I'll say, hey, we got shut down, blank, blank, blank. How do you want to proceed? Ultimately, it's the project manager's job to coordinate those things, but obviously, as a foreman and being on site all day, we typically act as a liaison, and typically it's us as the first person that they're going to see. They're usually not in a good mood. Somebody's usually yelling and screaming, hey, this is too much noise, you're interfering with my business. So you really have to be compassionate and think about the offset, the noise, and the inconvenience to them. I realize we have a job to do, but ultimately without these customers, we're not going to be in business. So after being shut down early and just a half hour into work, the project manager and I had a phone conversation, and I recommended that it would maybe be in our best interest to come in at night. The units that we were disturbing are open from 7 in the morning till 5 in the afternoon. So I had recommended that maybe we shift this job to a nighttime where we wouldn't be disturbing any of their patients or doctors. We were obviously working on a hospital, and the section of the hospital we're working on was only open during a certain time. And so I had recommended to the project manager that I would be willing to work nights, and it would be advantageous for us to go in at night, not a lot less people in our way. And so he proposed, he contacted them and said, listen, we could do this work. It would be easier for you and for us if we switched it to a nighttime rate. It would be a small cost change. However, it would be in everybody's best interest to do it when we're not stepping on each other's feet in the parking lot. And they agreed to that, and it's worked out great, and it's allowed the job to move forward without delays, without being stopped. In recent conversations with my superintendents, we've discussed, I'll call them up and say, hey, listen, I'm not too familiar with this product. What's the application? And they'll guide me through it. And I'll say, I don't mean to bother you, but, guide me through this. And like, no. One of our superintendents told me, I'd rather you call me and us talk through something and just assure us than you rush into something and make a mistake. And I think that's essential, that they're here to help us. It's a supportive team here. I don't think I could emphasize that enough. I think that from a superintendent standpoint, and I'm guessing here, but I would think that they would be glad to have somebody call for reassurance than to go ahead and proceed with an application and it be wrong. It's easier to make a phone call than it is to remove some material. Sure, there's times when you need an answer right away, and obviously we're not always able to reach somebody when we want to. And there's times you have to research it or call some other foreman. Here at the Denver branch, I have 18 other foremen that I can call, and I've utilized that. I've called my superintendent before and left a message, and in the interim have called some other foremen with more knowledge and more experience, and they've been able to guide me through it. And then when he finally called me back, the superintendent, I'm like, well, I already talked to so-and-so, and he helped me through this. And he's like, oh, perfect, And I think he was glad that I asked first before I just went ahead and possibly made the wrong answer. So.